discussed how we get to this 10% annual coupon, or the way that interest rates are decided in the money market. The first thing to notice about this bond, and I'm not sure whether I've mentioned this already, is that the value of any financial asset, be it a stock or a bond, a lease or even a physical asset such as an apartment building, or a piece of machinery, the value of that financial asset is simply the present value of the cash flows that the asset is expected to produce in the future. And the same goes for any asset that has any type of intrinsic value, I would say, on a marginally philosophical level. When you go to Dunkin' Donuts and you buy a coffee for $1, you're only paying $1 right now because you've done a cost-benefit analysis and you've said, well, it's worth the cost of $1 because it's going to give me a benefit of at least $1 in the near future. So essentially, when you have any type of cash outlay right now because you're expecting to get cash back in the future, you're essentially paying that cash outlay now because the value of any asset with intrinsic value is just the present value of its future returns, of the returns that you expect it to give you in the future. So the cash flows for a coupon-bearing bond, such as this one with its little coupons on the side, is just going to be the present value of all those interest payments. So let's think about the timeline over here. Let's draw up a timeline. Sorry. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Don't need to do all the numbers. Just do a few of them all the way through to 10. And we know over here that we would be trying to calculate the bond's value, but there are a few things for certain that we do know. We know that there is a bond, market rate of interest, and that would also be equivalent to the yield to maturity, which is a new concept that we'll get to soon. The yield to maturity is essentially the bond's market rate of interest, which is the discount rate that you would use to discount all the cash flows back to the present, as we did with time value of money. N is the number of years. We can actually put down the variables here just so that we don't get confused, and just so that we remember them. So the present value of the bond is something that we're trying to calculate. We're always trying to calculate what's the present value, how much is this financial asset worth to me today. The future value of a bond is always its face value, which is convenient because you've got FV there, which actually stands for future value, but the future value here is the face value. Remember face value? So it's actually 1,000. Now the payment is going to be 10% of the face value. So don't just automatically assume that it's going to be 100. It is, but always write it out as 10% of 1,000, and that does equal 100. Okay. Now I is going to be the market interest rate, which we're going to get to. I'm going to put it YTM in parentheses here for yield to maturity, but we're going to get to an explanation of that later. And the number of years over here we see is 10. Now we know that the market rate of interest essentially determines the coupon interest rate. So on the day that this bond is issued, the coupon interest rate is equivalent to the market interest rate, because the coupon interest rate was decided from the market rate. So let's just say we're thinking about the present value of this bond today, and the yield to maturity, or what we should think about as the market rate. Don't get mixed up, by the way. Don't think that the market rate is the same as the coupon rate always. It's only the same on the day that it's issued. The day after, or the second after it's issued, the bond starts floating as its own security, and its coupon rate is locked in at 10%. But just because this particular coupon was locked in at 10% doesn't mean the market rate is going to stay at 10%. I mean, the market doesn't care about this bond. The market will still continue to go on. So the market rate is going to fluctuate. But let's just think about this particular bond at the second that it's being issued. So it has a 10% rate. And now if you put the math into your financial calculator, the present value will come out at negative 1,000. So if you plot that on the timeline, essentially it's paying you $100 every single period. Even in the final period it's paying you $100, but in the final period there's a future value of 1,000. It's also paying you 1,000. So actually, if you add those together, the final payment actually comes out to 1,100. But essentially, the interest rate that it will that will discount, we now know the present value is negative 1,000. The interest rate that we will use to discount is over here. The market rate is 10%. So that's essentially how you would calculate the present value of a bond by doing so. But let's go a little bit deeper into this just to understand something that's pretty important and will be asked on every single interview that you get in finance, and that is what we like to call the inverse relationship between interest rates and bond prices. And this is something which is very important. Gosh, it's not very straight, is it? I'm left-handed, so it's kind of my excuse. Now let's think about the fact that you have a bond that's locked in at 10%. So here we are the investor. We are holding this bond which has a coupon rate locked in at 10%. Because the market rate was 10%, and that was back then. Now let's say, and that was let's say 10 years. Now let's say we come to the market now, right, and we're holding this XYZ bond, and it's paying a 10% coupon interest rate, which means it's paying 10% of its face value, $100, let's say. Now we come to the market, and all of a sudden, because of some interest rate drivers, which we don't need to discuss because that's macroeconomics, that's a whole different kerfuffle. But let's just say that now the same bond is being issued, but the market interest rate has actually risen to 15%, for whatever it may be. If you're thinking about the supply and demand curve here, what could raise interest rates? Well, either demand has shifted upwards or supply has been stifled to raise interest rates. And it's now gone up to 15%, and that's for the same $1,000 bond. XYZ. The only difference is yours says 10% on it, and this new one says 15% on it. So you come to the market, there's loads of people, let's just think of like a bird's eye view here, and the market going crazy, they're going wild. Give us bonds, we don't mind lending you this $1,000 as long as you give us this amazing coupon rate. We want them. And they're all looking over here, and they all love this new bond, which is giving 15% of over the time period, which means it's giving 15% of 1,000. So all of these little coupons mean that anyone who picks up this bond can snip one off, send it in, and get $150 back. Now all of a sudden this great noise comes from the left, and everyone all of a sudden turns around to look at you. And what are you doing? Well, you're holding your 10% bond and saying, why are you going direct to XYZ? Come to me, I'll sell it to you. And everyone says, alright, we'll come to you. And I say, fantastic, it's $1,000. And I'll say, what do you mean? How could it possibly be worth $1,000? Those dudes over there are paying $150 every period. You, however, are giving you your measly coupons for $100. And you say, aha, you are right about that. And they say, well, you know what? Let's cut a deal. If you want us to buy your bond, which is paying you $100 a year as opposed to your $150 a year, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to sell your bond at a discount. And this is what we would call a discount to face a discount to the face value. We're not going to pay you $1,000 to get $100 a year. We could go there and pay $1,000 to get $150 a year. Let's make a deal. Give it to us for about $900. Now we're talking, right? If we save $100, oh, I don't mind. I mean, these are obviously ballpark figures, but it's the concept here. The concept here that interest rates have gone up and your bond price has gone down. It can only be sold at a discount now. Now let's do the reverse. Let's do the reverse. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Okay, again. Let's do another bond. And this one is paying 5%. Look at this. XYZ company has new bonds that are paying $50 every single year of their $1,000 bond, and the crowd goes wild. Yes, we want it. We want it. Give it to us. All of a sudden, this noise comes over from the left, and everyone turns around to look at you. Why are you going to XYZ company and paying $1,000 to get $50 a year when you could buy it from me for $1,000 and get $100 a year? And the crowd are going wild. They can't contain themselves. Yes, please, we want your bond. Pay $1,000 as well, but we get double the amount of coupon payments. This is absolutely fantastic. You say, no, not going to sell it to you for $1,000. I'm not stupid. Over there, if you pay $1,000, you only get $50. If you want my bond, which is going to pay you $100 every period, you're going to have to buy it from me at a premium to face, or over par. It means the same thing. If you're getting this, then you understand it's a premium to face or it's a premium over par. And the idea is that again, there's an inverse relationship. As market interest rates go down, the price of your bond goes up. Why? Because you can charge more for it. You can charge more for it. So, let's just kind of come back up here, and now that we've drawn our little pictures, let's get real. Let's get real. Let's just make some room over here. Interest rate going up equals present value of the bond going down. Interest rates going down, present value of your bond is going up. This is the key. These are the key points. This is the inverse relationship between interest rates and bond prices. You will be asked this on your exam. You will be asked this on your interview. You should know this when you are sleeping. This is one of the most important concepts in bond valuation. It is vital that you understand this. Next time, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of yield to maturities and bond valuation analytics. Thanks for listening.